Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now, from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. Dorothy's school just officially ended yesterday.
Yes, it did.
I mean, all the schools are now out, and a lot of kids are going to be starting their summer vacation. So we are starting our summer season, and one of the things we're going to do this year, during the summer, we're going to try to highlight a couple of individuals in Moore County who have started second careers, who, you know, in my book have reinvented themselves, you know, another chapter in their book. I really respect that entrepreneurial spirit, and I love to hear the stories about how people pivot, and they just add a lot of texture to their lives and their careers. So let me roll back the time to either November or December of last year.
Okay.
And I started making a couple of calls and was looking to have, you know I don't cook, right?
Yes, I know.
Okay. But I have all these knives and I have all these sharp edges, and, you know, every one of them was duller than the one before. So to cut a lemon
I can imagine.
It was a project.
I'm sure.
And
Can't cut a lemon with a dull knife.
I had the only knives where I could miss the lemon, hit my hand, and it wouldn't break the skin.
That's pretty bad, Bill.
I know. So I made a few calls, and I got introduced to our guest today, Matthew Mutarelli, who owns the Mutarelli Combat Custom Gunsmithing and Knife Sharpening business in Southern Pines.
Nice.
And all I knew about this area was there's a firm out in what used to be the old Lobster restaurant.
Yes.
Called Spartan Blades.
Yep.
And I said, when that went in, that was a knife company. But as you speak to Matt today, you're going to find out they do so much more, as well as what Matt does. So I took not just my knives, everything I had that had a sharp edge.
Okay.
And I tried to catalog them so they were really organized, and I was going to really impress him. And I think he just thought I had OCD. And because I just took the whole box, and it was heavy. And I left them with him, and I think a week or so later I come back. Oh my gosh. The lemons would just look at the knife and cut themselves.
Hey. I
had no idea, that they were so bad. And I forgot what a sharp knife was like. But it gave me a chance to meet Matthew, and we got to talking a little bit. And when I had asked him if he would be interested to come on. And it didn't happen at the end of last year, but fortunately he reached out, and Matthew, would you rather go by Matt or Matthew?
Matthew's fine.
Okay. I'm so glad that you came, and you're originally from the Philadelphia area.
Yes, sir.
Whereabouts in Philly?
Northeast Philadelphia, a little place called Langhorne.
Oh, I know it very well.
Do you?
I went to college in the Lehigh Valley.
Okay.
And I lived in Newtown Square.
Okay, right up the road, yeah.
And Wayne, right past Valley Forge, near the Valley Forge Military Academy. And Langhorne was right off the PA Turnpike,
yes,
if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you grew up there?
I grew up there, yes.
And you had an earlier career before you started the custom gunsmithing and knife sharpening business.
Yes, I did. I joined the Army in 1987.
Yep.
And I was an infantryman, and I was assigned to Fort Polk, Louisiana, the 5th Infantry Division, down at Fort Polk, the place where it makes most people in the Army cringe. And I spent 2 years there. I was a 2-year man to start out, because that was the deal was my mother. I was only 17 years old, so my mother and father had to sign for me.
Uh-huh.
And the deal was, if you don't like it, then you're only in it for 2 years.
Okay.
So I said, okay. And so off I went and did my 2 years there. Learned a lot of stuff. I was a mechanized soldier. Learned about vehicles and spent a lot of time out at the Joint Readiness Training Center in California and in the swamps of Louisiana. And after 2 years, I said, well, there's got to be a little bit more to the Army than old Camp Swampy.
Mm-hmm.
And I re-enlisted to go to airborne school and 82nd Airborne Division.
Mm. How many years did your military career span?
21 years.
Wow.
21 years. After I served through the Gulf War in the 2nd to 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment. From there, I applied to Special Forces and went to Special Forces selection course in January of 1992, and then graduated the Q course later on that year, right around Halloween, Thanksgiving time frame.
That was 31 years ago.
It was a few days ago.
That's pretty scary when you think about it, right?
Sure enough.
And let me guess, your term of duty ended at Fort Bragg?
Yes.
Now
Yeah.
Fort Liberty?
Fort Bragg. That's what my DD-214 says, and I'm glad it does say that, yes.
Okay. Did you then make Moore County your home right after that?
I did. I liked the area. My wife is from North Carolina, from the Durham area.
Yeah.
And we have some roots here. And
Yeah.
the Southern Pines have been great to me. I came back here to be, when I was after graduating the Special Forces course, I was assigned to the 5th Special Forces Group out at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I was there for 8 years. And then I get levied to come back here as an instructor. I taught small unit tactics down at Camp McCall. And I also helped stand up the 18F Special Forces Intelligence Sergeant's course at Main Post Fort Bragg.
So today, you didn't have to completely reinvent yourself, but you redirected maybe part of your skill set.
Yes.
But you also teach.
Yes, I've recently retired from teaching.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, being a Special Forces soldier, that you are a teacher. You're a force multiplier.
Right.
You're supposed to go in there and link up with your counterparts and train, lead them, assist them, that kind of thing. And so it's not a new thing. While I was in the Warfare Center, I started going to gunsmithing school, and on the weekends. And then after I retired, I went back and got more training and got an associate's degree in gunsmithing from the Montgomery Community College up in Troy, North Carolina.
I didn't even know that was a course option. What stimulated you to get into gunsmithing?
It's the mechanical side, and I was a mechanized soldier, so I was dealing with heavy weapons, 50 cal machine guns and M60 machine guns, that kind of thing. And I was a Special Forces weapons sergeant, so that was employment, maintenance, training with all the foreign weapons and all the U.S. Standard weapons. And I've always had a kind of a mechanical inclination. So that's what really drove me to it. And then while I was at the Warfare Center teaching small unit tactics down at Camp McCall, I figured out that they have these short courses up at Montgomery Community College, which we still do. And I went ahead and took one, and that was all it took. That's what the bug bit me at that point. So I said, well, what other ones you have? So I couldn't accommodate any of the other ones, but after I transitioned from the camp down to Main Post, I went to school on the weekends. They had a Friday night and all day Saturday curriculum, and I was a weekend student for 3 years.
Okay. Have you lived in the same house when you got out of the military in '08 where you are today?
Yes. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so Southern Pines is home.
Yep. Oh, without doubt.
And you've been you started your business in 2008, 2009?
No, I guess officially, I got a federal firearms license and a business license and all that. That's really when it became official. But I always the reason why we had a little house on the other side of the railroad tracks at the end of May Street, and when my wife and I got married, and we were looking for a new house and all this other stuff, and a house on the other side of the trail on Bennett Street became available, and and the reason why we bought it was my wife's, well, pardon me.
Sure.
You need someplace to work, and it had a detached shop.
Right.
So that's kind of sealed the deal, and
right.
we've been there ever since.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what attracted me was, at the time, was not the gunsmithing, but it was the knife sharpening.
Yes.
I thought to myself, this isn't going to exist here, or if it does, it's going to be some automated service or some truck, and who knows? I had never seen a lot of publicity for anything like that. And where I came from, up in the New York, New Jersey area, plenty of places. But
really?
Yeah, but not here.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a chance to hook up. I was real pleased. The knife sharpening business is a recent add-on to your gunsmithing business.
Yes, it is. I always sharpen knives. I when I was overseas, I was I was doing research and development for my last 4 years in the Army, with the Special Operations Command, and I had my gun shop, as it were, overseas, and people would they saw me sharpening knives, and the guys would just leave their knives down there, and I'd tag them, and okay, hey, when you get come on over, when you get done your shift, come on over and pick them up. So I was always doing it by hand,
right?
And then I started making knives too. I took I was teaching at Montgomery Community College, and then I took a lot of continuing education courses making knives, and I kind of really wanted to start making knives, but I figured that's a very competitive market, and I'm a little late to the game.
Are you talking about hunting knives, or are you talking about
hunting knives, tactical knives, that kind of thing?
Okay.
And I it's a very competitive market, and I kind of got an idea that not everybody has guns, but everybody has knives, and they're all dull.
That's exactly right.
And they need sharpening. So I was okay. So I did a little research and so forth. And again, I've in the last 5-7 years I started making knives, and that kind of helps me along. Have a deep understanding of metal and so forth.
What kind of knives do you make?
I make basically a fixed blade standard knife. I do a lot of 18th century living history, so I do quite a bit of that stuff. Where Revolutionary War type knives. I'm working on I have a sword project going right now, and a bunch of other knives that I'm kind of like just I work on from time to time. And I like doing those because you don't have to spend a whole lot of time finishing them out and so forth like that.
Do you resell them?
Occasionally, mostly I give them away or donate them. Believe it or not, people hit me up. Hey, we need a donation. Or my wife's friend was involved with the Boys and Girls Club out in western part of North Carolina, and they needed something for a raffle. Huh. And and I give them to family members and stuff like that. I think I've made a knife for just about every family member and for friends and so forth. And that's kind of my thing.
So a guy like me who came in with all my household knives,
mm-hmm.
Am I an oddity, or is that a part of your business that's growing?
No, that's really the cornerstone of my business right now, especially during the summertime, because nobody's thinking about guns. They're thinking about vacations. When the weather starts getting cool, everyone starts dusting off their guns to go to the field or go to DeWitt's or something like that, and they figure out that maybe I should have cleaned that thing before I put it up. So, but yeah, the knife sharpening has been extremely profitable, and people like the results.
So you have probably a captive audience here in town.
Mm-hmm.
And Spartan Blades, I know they don't sharpen knives. They just, I guess, maybe their own.
They will make good on, if somebody decides to want to hack on a center block with one of their knives, as people tend to do. They're hard on stuff, and they'll sharpen their own stuff, and that's fine. They have they're set up for production. I can take a knife and repair it if it's broken, and I can recalibrate my machinery. Whereas Spartan, it would be just counterproductive for them to recalibrate their machines. So I can recalibrate my machine very quickly.
You mentioned your knowledge of metals. Social media these days, you go online and everything is for sale.
Sure.
Everyone has these knife sets. This is for the homeowner. And they talk about all the different properties and the promotions, and the prices are so low. And they talk about their coating. What's the best metal? Because German knives, for instance, very expensive.
Yes.
And then you run the gambit where you say 4 installment payments of $29.99. You'll never need to get another set of knives, and people buy that stuff. But what kind of metals are the best for knives?
Stainless steel. Yeah, the stainless steel knives. A good knife. A friend of mine who's a professional chef, he goes to TJ Maxx for knives.
Is that right?
He said, yeah, you can even a Chinese knife, something made in China or Taiwan is not too bad. But of course, Wusthof, J.A. Hinkels,
Right.
any of the German knives,
Right.
stuff made in England.
Right.
Sheffield, England has been a knife making, titan for many, many years.
Right.
And that's actually for well over a century. And they really cracked the code on metal refining and stuff like that. A good metal is getting very difficult to find. I think we've about wrung the planet dry on really good metal. So everything is kind of a rehash or a recycle, and able to, and that's fine. You have to be able to do it properly. You have the technology to get everything back down to its base elements of iron, then infuse the chromium, the magnesium. All the little additives and goodies that make that knife blade tough, and that's what you're after: toughness and edge retention.
Dorothy, he sounds like a metallurgist. We're going to come back in the second set. Our guest is Matthew Mutarelli of the Mutarelli Combat Custom Gunsmithing and Knife Sharpening. This is All Things Moore County. Welcome back to All Things Moore County. Matthew Mutarelli is our guest. We're talking all about his combat custom gunsmithing and knife sharpening. And it entails a lot more than just knife sharpening and gunsmithing. I mean, one of the things I had an aha moment when I was packing up my knives to bring over to you, because I was being so literal. I said, just get all the knives. Then I look around my house, and I said, oh, I have like 6 sets of scissors, and I have straight edge razors. And I said, well, maybe he can do those as well. And his response was, why not? It's a sharp edge, and that's what I can sharpen and hone, I guess is the term.
Right.
And I never even thought to bring in the straight edges, but they were dull.
Right.
And I didn't ever really use them, but I said, oh, well, I'm doing this anyway, might as well. And firearms, it's not just recreational guns, is it? Or, no, not really.
Pretty much anything. Modern guns, I specialize now in flintlock rifles and black powder guns. That's kind of where my interests have really pushed me over the years. But modern guns, modern metallic cartridge guns, yeah, pretty much anything. I mean, there's a few things I won't mess with, but I probably know someone who does, and I have a few people in my circle, my professional circle, that we do a lot of trading as far as referring of jobs too.
Yeah. What was one of the most unusual guns or knives or jobs that you received that you did? Anything that really stood out? I'm sure there are.
Yeah, I had to do one fellow from Pinehurst. This was years ago. He had a gun and had a lot of sentimental value. He had a lot of sentimental attachment to it, and it was the poor stock was dry rotted and just falling apart. And I said, yeah, I can fix it. It's gonna be a little expensive because I have to use a lot of material for it. And he said, I don't care. I said, well, I could get you a new stock. He said, I don't want a new stock. I said, okay. So I went ahead and kind of like a dentist grinding on a bad tooth.
Yeah.
Went ahead and ground out all the bad parts of the stock and started filling it full of high strength epoxy. And then it took about half a dozen iterations of gluing, clamping, reinforcing, back and forth, and finally I got it to a point where it looked acceptable, and I really couldn't finish the stock in a certain in a conventional way. The metal was good, the bore was good, action was good, but the stock was a disaster, and he wanted what he wanted. I ended up just going down to Lowe's Home Improvement, getting a can of brown spray paint. I spray painted that thing. And I tell you what, it looked great, and he came in and he just over the moon with it. So that's one of those things. A lot of people have sentimental value, a lot of memories wrapped up in their firearms from childhood and so forth. So yeah, I do a lot of that stuff. Guns that were in floods, unfortunately, things like that. And of course, guys from Fort Bragg, their childhood home might have been underwater or something. They might have lived by they grew up near the Mississippi River, and all of a sudden their gun was underwater, and had to do a lot of rehab stuff with that. Nice lady who was a realtor bought a small cash safe from Costco, and she had a very, very nice stainless steel 45 caliber pistol, and if you don't know anything about real estate, well, yeah, you do. Yeah, that's right.
I hope so.
Yeah, well, know quite a bit. And I never knew this, but real estate agents get assaulted on a regular basis and so forth, showing. So she carries this gun with her because of course, a female real estate agent showing houses that when the person can see it, pose a problem. And unfortunately, this beautiful stainless steel Sig Sauer pistol was covered with rust, and what happened was, and I asked her a few pointed questions. So what was in the safe? What was this? What was that? She said nothing. And what I could determine was the safe was the hollow or the fire fill inside the safe was probably mixed with formaldehyde or something like that. It came from China, and it basically destroyed the gun. And she was just very upset. She said, "This is a part of my equipment." She said, "Just like my car, just like my computer." She says, "I need this gun." So I said, "Okay." I said, "Let me see what I can do." And I got it about 10 o'clock in the morning. I scrubbed all the stuff out of there and all the rust and all this other stuff. Got it working, and refinished the sights for her. Got it all together and called her at 5 o'clock. And she showed up at my shop. Very well dressed, and she said, "Is my gun done?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, it is." And I showed it to her. I said, the sights are a little bit eaten up, but I've refinished the sights and all that stuff. She said, "Good." She pulled out a magazine of ammunition, slapped it in the gun, racked around into the chamber, and put it in a holster, and said, wrote me a check, and that was it.
Wow.
So there you go.
That's great.
I don't want to be the guy that sold her that safe. That manager at Costco has got an earful, I'm sure, after that. Yeah. She wanted the pictures too of the gun and all that stuff. So if you're that guy at Costco, sorry, owe you one.
As I'm looking at the litany of things that you do, I mentioned straight edges, I mentioned scissors, but gardening tools?
Sure.
very popular, right? Yard tools.
And there's been a big surge in that. 'Cause,
Yeah.
the spring has hit, and everybody needs to go out there and take care of their plants and so forth. And if you're working on a plant with a dull set of shears,
Yeah.
you can kill it.
And also woodworking tools as well.
Absolutely. Yep.
So word of mouth, is that by far and away your number one?
Yes. Yeah. I've had working with partnering with Spartan Blades off of US 1. Again, they get calls on a fairly regular basis, and I didn't serve with those guys. They're also Special Forces soldiers, and that is their business, Spartan Blades and Pineland Cutlery, and they were extremely happy because now they have somebody to direct them to, and again, relationships and networking really carries the day out there.
You have a good partnership then with them.
Oh, absolutely.
It's symbiotic. I mean,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's a handshake deal, and and that's the way it's been.
Yeah. Your shop is in Southern Pines, and your business hours are
basically from 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And then 10 to 2 on Saturday. But that's very flexible. If someone can only do business, drop off knives or pick up knives at 7 o'clock in the evening, hey, make an appointment, not a problem.
And best way for them to reach you?
My phone number, it's my cell phone and my business line, 910 585 4350.
Yeah. When I came over to your shop, we spoke on the phone first, and I told you what I had, and you said sure. We set up a time. I believe it was on a Saturday morning, and one of the impressions I walked away with from your shop, which we want to talk about in the third set, first of all, is all your equipment, the type of equipment you use. But it's set up like it's your man cave, it's your game room, it's where you spend your days, and you have a love affair with what you're doing. That came through loud and clear.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's taken a long time to get my shop to this point. And all my machinery is second or third hand, but it's good solid machines, and that's really the difference between a professional and a hobbyist. The ability to use machines, vertical mill machine, surface grinders, metal lathes, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Let's come back in the third set. I want to talk about your equipment. I was amazed at how crowded your shop was, but you know where everything is. It's like it's in your brain, your inventory, your tools. Yep. You also do drill bits.
I can do drill bits, yes.
Yeah. We're going to come back. The name of the company is Mutarelli Combat Custom Gunsmithing and Knife Sharpening here in Southern Pines. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final set of All Things Moore County. Matthew Mutarelli is our guest. He owns a Southern Pines-based business, Combat Custom Gunsmithing and Knife Sharpening. You're a font of knowledge. I mean, you, from what you know, your stories, the variety of things that you've worked with along the line of guns and knives and tools and oh my gosh, straight edges. Has anyone ever brought you straight edges before?
No, you're the first.
I'm the first. Yeah, I might be the second.
First with the straight razors and all that. Someone brought me a sushi knife, and that's another animal altogether. Because you have to be able to, peel off, paper thin pieces of fish and so forth like that, and that's a whole nother deal right there.
But the learning curve is not different, is it, for a straight edge or a sushi knife, because you're just working on the blade?
Different angles,
Okay.
and if you're using a sushi knife, or anything similar to a sushi knife, most of the knives that I'm going to grind or I'm going to sharpen, then I'll follow it up with a honing to kind of smooth them out. Well, if you got it's all about the angle geometry as that knife is cutting through the material, whatever that material may be. For instance, who knew this, but scissors, fabric scissors and paper scissors are left really rough. Okay, they're not polished. The actual edge on them isn't polished. It's left rough, so it captures and cuts the material. It doesn't matter if you're cutting the finest silk or very delicate lace or burlap. It needs to be rough. Same with the big large hedge clippers and stuff like that. It has to be able to capture whatever it's cutting, and then it severs it. Versus, say, a sushi knife where you're coming in there and you're cutting fish in paper thin slices. The angle is very shallow. Only maybe about a 20-degree included angle. Or same with the straight razors, and you have to. You're actually pushing as you're cutting. You're pushing that material out of the way with that instrument, and it can't have any drag on it, and that's the key right there. Some instruments have. You want the drag, and some instruments you can't tolerate the drag because then it'll make a mess of whatever you're cutting.
You say that heat is the enemy of blades.
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Well, you take a piece of metal, say 1075 high carbon steel, and you're going to go ahead and make a knife out of it. You're going to heat that thing up to what's known as a critical temperature, where it becomes non-magnetic, usually about 1500 degrees or so, or better, and you'll quench it in oil or water, whatever the material calls for, and now it's icicle hard. You'll go ahead and you'll clean it up, and then you'll heat it to a lower temperature. I think 1075 is maybe about 525 degrees. You'll heat it up to 525 degrees, which is much lower than a hardening temperature, and it'll swing the pendulum from icicle hard back to somewhere in the middle, so you'll have that toughness, and that's what you like. You still want it to be flexible, and you want that toughness, that edge retention. If you heat up a blade, so you could take a nice Wüsthof knife or a J.A. Hinkle's knife, or even a Cuisinart knife from Walmart, it has a temper to it. It's been hardened and it's been tempered, and if you heat it up, what's going to happen is the process is what's known as annealing. What happens is it rearranges those atoms in there, and now instead of it being tough or hard, you've softened it, and that's no good. Anybody can make knives have been made throughout the ages. Well, they've been made well, and been made not so well. If you just take a blade and drag it across a belt sander or drag it across a grinder, yeah, it'll get sharp for a little bit, and
Right.
then you'll be back, and then you'll be back to relying on friction to get through that tomato.
Your shop is loaded with equipment.
Yes.
I've never seen right. And tell us a little bit about the equipment that you use, because you're very proud of it.
Yeah. The before I started doing the commercial knife sharpening, I had a lot of different stones and so forth like that. I had diamond stones, and they were all manual. I started looking, going on the internet, talking to people, and I had seen one of these machines before. It's called a Tormek. It's made in Sweden, and I'd seen them once before, and it kind of made sense. I didn't give it much thought when I saw it, but then I was like, okay, now I'm seeing a lot of everyone's. Oh, our our machine is just as good as a Tormek, and at a tenth of the price. Aha! All right, just as good as a Tormek. Huh? So I started looking at this Tormek,
Right.
and it's pretty much the industry standard. It's very repeatable. It has fixturing for pretty much everything: the drill bits, the wood tools, the planer blades, scissors, and knives of all types, small, medium, and large knives, and so forth. And the thing about it is, it doesn't generate heat. It's a rotary. It's a low RPM, high torque motor, and the stone goes through a water bath. So all the material, the grindings, or what's known as a swarf, gets flooded off of the stone, so it doesn't clog up the stone, and that water goes across the grinding edge of the knife, and no heat is generated. So the metal doesn't get annealed or softened.
Gotcha. Somebody walks in like me. They bring all their kitchen knives, their steak knives, their formal knives, and they just decide they want to have everything done at one time so they can sort of have it standardized. Is there a way you can talk a little bit about how you price like domestic knives? And then
Sure.
we'll talk about the guns.
I charge $1.50 per inch, and that's pretty much knife sharpeners, they were going to charge by inch, and serrated knives are going to be extra because I have to do those by hand.
Right.
If it's a reoccurring type job, and I'll work out the price right there as you drop them off, and you'll know what you're going to get charged, unless something comes up.
That's true. That's what you did with me.
Yeah, I'll work it all out, and we'll measure the knives and so forth. Say, okay, hey, this thing's rough. I'm going to have to do a little bit more doctoring up with this guy, and and usually it's if it's a severely dull blade, you'll pay the $1.50 per inch plus a $5 fee on top of that. The serrated knives get a little bit tricky. I do those by hand. Like the long serrated bread knives and stuff like that. I do those manually on a diamond stone. Yeah. And so they take a little bit more time. Yeah. And that's kind of it. I don't usually charge by the inch on there. I just charge by the job on the bread knives and stuff like that. That'll be kind of carried down. But the standard knives, your standard carving knives and your steak knives and your vegetable knives and stuff like that, it's straight up by the inch, and they're taken care of. Now rehab on stuff, that's kind of a case by case basis, but I can have a ballpark figure right then and there.
Okay. And how about any guidelines on the guns? How you charge on guns?
For clean and inspect, guns come in, clean and inspect. I'll do $55 for a long gun. That includes a test fire. I present a test fire target and the spent cartridges with the gun. That's $55. $45 for handguns. $40 for transfers. Let's say if someone bought a gun off of Gunbroker,
right,
and they're a non-licensee, they don't hold an FFL, they could pay for it and then get some contact information. Then I'll do the rest, and then the transfer fee is $40.
Okay, probably the worst time to bring knives in to see you is just before the holidays, right?
Yeah,
because they're not going to get their knives back in time.
I'll get them back in time.
Okay.
Yeah, that's I have no problem with that. I don't turn anybody away unless I just can't do the job.
Your hours 9 to 5, but I get the feeling that you spend some evenings in
Sure.
the shop.
Oh yeah.
On weekends, you'll disappear in there and play catch up.
Yeah, one thing leads to another. I start fiddling with something, fiddling with one of my own projects, and then someone gives me a call, and who's this? Oh sure, yeah, I'm in the shop. Come on over and drop off knives, what have you.
Well, people sometimes they get used to what they have, and they maybe not even aware that there are opportunities to have them sharpen tools, domestic knives, and woodworking. tools as well.
Sure.
So you open up a whole lot of possibilities by coming on and talking with us. You can be reached at 910-585-4350. And your normal hours are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and you're open Saturdays from 10 to 2.
Yes, sir.
So people can call or text you anytime.
Yeah, text message is probably about the best. If I'm in the middle of something, I'll just let it go to voicemail, and of course leave a voicemail. I contact everybody back, regardless of whether or not I'm going to take the job or not. And just out of courtesy, I believe in that. And we'll talk about what they have, and if I don't feel comfortable doing it, then that's not a problem. We can talk about it, and I'll tell you straight up, hey, that probably can't do that.
Well, you were great to work with. You were very direct, very upfront. No surprises, which I like. What you don't want is to have a customer have a deer in the headlights look, right? You want them to know up front
Absolutely
what they're bringing in and what they're going to be paying. Mutarelli Combat Custom Gunsmithing and Knife Sharpening. They're here in Southern Pines. Matthew's a great guy, and I'm going to be checking my blades, my straight edges, and we'll see. Maybe we'll start a trend here where people will start bringing some things in. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is All Things Moore County. Have a great week. Thank you.